The following is a production of Frank DeFreitas and the Internet Museum of Holography.
Hello and welcome to the season finale of HoloTalk. For the final show of the season, I thought it would be a nice idea to look back and highlight many of the shows that were broadcast this season. For the summer months, I will replay these shows in their entirety for those listeners who either never had the chance to hear them originally, and for those who would like to listen again. HoloTalk will return with a new season of shows on September 13th, right after Labor Day. To start off, I spoke with Paul Graham of Light Vision early in the season and asked him if he could share the technique of putting holograms on edible foods, in this particular case, lollipops. Here's what he had to say. Without giving any secrets out, that you obviously have to hold on for your own protection of doing this and inventing this technology with, your company. Could you tell some of the listeners what goes into putting a holographic image on a lollipop?
Yes, I can. Well, basically, the history of the hologram was that it was invented by a physicist at MIT. His name's Eric Begleiter, and Eric is actually a principal of our company. He actually still handles all the holography work for us. Eric had discovered that he could impart images onto food products. Mm-hmm. So basically what he devised was a system where he can cut little tiny grooves in the surface of the food. Mm-hmm. What happens is the light comes in and reflects off these grooves and forms an image in your eye.
Just the way things happen with sort of like an embossed hologram.
Basically, it's a very similar sort of process.
Now, you're able to do this with pops, I believe, because something to do with the sucrose or something being almost like a plastic?
Yeah, basically, most food like flour, starches, and sugars are really a sort of natural form of plastic. I mean, they're not a stable form, but they effectively work like a plastic. I mean, glass is, as you know, with embossed holograms, the forming glass is actually also sort of like a plastic type agent. So Eric sort of postulated that he could use food similar to using metals or glass or anything else, and it tends to work.
On another show, Wang Hunter Chun of Holographic Development Corporation in Shenzhen, China, told HoloTalk listeners how holography is currently used in China. Mm-hmm. How are holograms used in China? Are they used in magazines or packaging?
The hologram in China commonly used only for the label on some small package.
I see.
That we can see anywhere. I think in U.S. and in other countries, it's also, like some embossed labels.
Yes, embossed holograms.
That takes almost 99% in China. Mm-hmm. And usually they are very small. They are 1 to 2 centimeter squares.
I see.
I can find some bigger ones in abroad, but in China it's only small ones. Actually, we never see any other use, like in the magazine cover or books or any package. In the package, they have some, not hologram, they have some shiny materials like hologram papers or something.
We took a virtual trip up to Victoria, British Columbia, and visited the holography shop of Derek Gallen. He told us about his Russian holograms on exhibit at Royal Holographic Gallery.
Frank, we try to have as much as possible of different artists on a different hologram product. We try to find new products. We constantly search for them. That's the reason we are able to show quite unique Russian holograms. Mm-hmm. We started the partnership with Russian holographers more or less 3 years ago. We have a constant display of Russian holography. Mm-hmm. Made mostly on a Russian glass plate, which is kind of difficult for shipping, but they are extremely high quality, as you know, and they are very interesting. So we have like one wall devoted only to Russian holography. Most of it is like old Russian artifacts from museums, but there is a few modern art pieces. quite an interesting display, I would say. The other holograms we have are Larry Lieberman's multicolor holograms. We have some of the holograms from Holland, from Dutch Holography Studio. And we have the photopolymers, which Hughes made ones using very well-known masters from Mr. and Mrs. Olson, as well as Mr. Cherry, so they are quite good.
On another show, Alex Scheimitz of 3 Deep Company gave us some technical information on making the switch from AGFA holographic recording materials to the new Slavich materials.
For my group of people, and I mostly get amateurs and educational services and things of that nature at the site. That's the majority of people that come through the site. But I imagine they would be interested in 2 types of the emulsions, the PFG-01 and the PFD-03M.
That's true. That's what I would guess for the helium neon users.
Yes. Now, I received a package from Slavich this week, and it does say PFG-01 is good for laser transmission and reflection holography. Is that true?
Well, there's 2 ones. There's a PFG-01, which is, as I understood it, to be transmission with pulse laser or helium neon. And then there's an 01M, which is a slight improvement. It doesn't have an anti-halation backing, and it's for transmission and reflection.
I see. And it has a greater it's actually a faster emulsion than the 03.
That's right. It is a faster emulsion.
Okay, because I've got some of AGFA's older information here from their 8E75 HD emulsions, and it appears to me that it may be possible to make reflection holograms with this -01 emulsion.
Yeah, the 01, the analog to the 01 would be the 8E75, and the 01M, the analog would be an 8E75 HD. The 01Ms are not, we don't have them yet. They won't arrive until mid-January. But at the moment, we're reducing our buys of the 01 that's straight for transmission, because it looks like the 01M is really going to support just about everybody's needs. If there are special needs requiring the older type emulsion, of course, we'd be happy to pick that up on the next restocking.
Dr. Stephen Benton of the Media Lab at MIT filled HoloTalk listeners in on the latest advances in holographic technology. Here we spoke on compressing holographic video.
Well, I think the Internet has made the person on the street very well aware of compression technologies. How do compression technologies figure into this scheme with holography? Is it an important aspect?
Well, certainly in holographic video, we're making these little holograms about 3 inches by 5 inches in size that take 36 megabytes each of raw hologram data.
That's not very much, actually, is it?
Well, it's not as much as it used to be.
This audio file will take up more space than that when we're finished.
Yeah. But it takes a while to pump 36 megabytes across from any place to any place, especially if you're trying to do 30 of them a second.
Yes.
So we've been looking at compression techniques. We've gotten up to about 32 to 1 with pretty visually lossless compression. That's techniques that are designed around the specific properties of diffractive images. Mark Lucenti, who graduated from here a couple of years ago, did a lot of work on what he called diffraction-specific computing, or compression. And we're going to need that stuff if we try to ship holographic video images, moving images, over any very long distances.
Did you see the Men in Black video covers at the store? Brian Monahan from Pennsylvania Pulp and Paper talked with us about how his company created them on this HoloTalk show.
Excellent. Now, you had a couple interesting projects. One of the ones that goes back a little ways, Star Trek Generations. Yeah. And then you've got the Men in Black video covers, video cassette cover as well.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The Star Trek one was a good. We won a few awards with the IHMA, the International Hologram Manufacturers Association, for the Star Trek box, and it really, in my opinion, turned out turned out really pretty fantastic. It achieved its goal. That led into a lot of other projects, some smaller ones, but then eventually into the Men in Black, which last year, definitely, if not to date, was the largest holographic packaging job in the world.
Alan Rohde from Ross Books talked about a very exciting development at Sony. This show generated the most listeners and emails of any other show.
Basically, Sony just unveiled the first fully portable holographic stereogram portrait printing system.
By portable, our idea of portable sometimes means like a Walkman.
Right, and it is something like that.
No kidding.
It can be used outdoors. It's basically you sit in front of a scanning digital camera that's on a rail, and the rail's about 3-4 feet long. The camera travels down the rail. It takes 225 separate images that it feeds into an image processing unit, just through a wire.
Okay.
And the image processing unit's located in a box about the size of a desktop copying machine.
Wow.
It goes through the image processor. The image processor takes all the different parallax views and regenerates 295 different views left to right, sends them into an optics board located on a little isolation platform built into this thing.
Get out.
And the condensed images the images are shown on an LCD screen. It's a spatial light modulator valve, they call it, and it's condensed into a vertical strip onto a diffuser screen, and then it's recorded with a little green laser, a solid-state laser, directly on a piece of DuPont photopolymer.
Mr. X, who wanted to remain anonymous, spoke about his extensive collection of holograms, and also spoke about holographic philosophy and David Bohm.
Now, I know you follow a lot of different things with holography, including some of the theories of Dr. David Bohm and some of the other people that work on the philosophy
I met him a
of
few
holography.
times, and when he was alive, he was a professor of theoretical physics, and he had some really unique ideas about the relationship between holograms and the universe, and how possibly the cosmos is holographic in nature. And that was really interesting, talking to him and discussing philosophy with him. There's a really good book, if people would be interested, that deals with some of his ideas and with holograms and that kind of a thing, and it's fairly simple, in terms of reading. It's called A Looking Glass Universe.
Okay.
And F. David Peat and John Briggs are the authors.
Okay.
There's a Looking Glass Universe.
Looking Glass Universe, and a couple other titles they might want to look into is Wholeness and the Implicate Order.
Yeah, that's by Professor Bohm.
I think he did that maybe in conjunction with Krishnamurti.
Right, yeah. Krishnamurti is a philosopher. He passed away also, but some of his ideas I'm really appreciative of, too, because he deals a lot with holistic aspects of things and how the observer is the observed.
I asked Dr. Jeong from Lake Forest College about the hottest future applications of holography, and he gave his thoughts on this and some advice for students as well.
For example, the big application in holography in the next 10 years is computer memory.
Yes.
Holographic optical element to control light inside the computer chip, to distribute the information from one chip to another via light. That's the important use. Even now, the most important uses of holography, I have a time map. I always wear cheap watches because I lose them when I'm windshield. But there's a hologram in there that you're looking right through.
Really?
Used to, when you push the button at night to look at what time it is, there would be one little bright light on one corner and spread out to the other side, and it fades out. Right now, there's a hologram layer in there that spreads the light evenly throughout the entire space of my watch. That's a hologram. Nobody knows about that.
I did not know about that on the Timex watch.
Yep. Even in the Motorola cell phone, you turn it on at night, there's a hologram under the glass.
Isn't that interesting?
In other words, they're in lots of places. In a CD player, there's a hologram inside to split the light, send the light to different places, and grocery store. In other words, holograms are already in many places people don't know, and in the future, it'll be many other places you don't know.
That's something.
And that's whole area. So I tell students they can have fun making holograms of pictures to learn. Maybe that's their profession, make art, artistic images. But by learning one thing, you automatically are learning a million things.
Yes.
To relate, one learning to another, how generic learnings are. That one physical law applies to infinite number of things.
Ever try to do holography during an earthquake? Steve Province of Blue Ridge Holographics filled us in on why they moved from the West Coast to the East Coast.
We've been pretty fortunate. It was just minor stuff. Some clean benches crashed and HEPA filters got poked through and stuff like that. But it wasn't those events that actually spooked us from, working in quake country. It was the bloody aftershocks. Because a lot of the shots we do record, 7 or 8 different elements, or channels, all done in a sequence, tightly registered sequence. And all of a sudden, 1 out of 7, for no explainable reason, the shot wouldn't come out.
Yeah.
Now, photoresist, as you may know, is a very slow, very insensitive animal. So it pushes exposure times up into the minutes range instead of the seconds range. And frankly, after you'd spent, 6 hours getting through a sequence of 13 individual recordings on a single plate, only to find that one of them dropped out because some little trimmer you couldn't even feel had mucked it up, you'd have to start all over. And after having to do every job 2 or 3 times to get lucky enough to avoid a miss, we just sort of said, this is counterproductive. So we loaded up the truck and we moved from Beverly.
Lasers in airspace was just one of the topics of discussion with L. Michael Roberts of Laser FX International. He explained what the news is all about.
From what I understand, there's a hot topic in Las Vegas right now with, actually between the laser light show people and the airport authorities. Are you aware of this?
Oh, yes. This has been a very hot issue in the industry and continues to be a hot issue in the industry, lasers in airspace. How this came about is that a number of Las Vegas hotels installed very large laser shows to shoot beams of light into the sky as part of attracting people to their facilities. And in part, this used a new technology called the YAG laser, which is an infrared laser that's been frequency doubled to 532 nanometers. The 532 spectral line is very, very close to the peak sensitivity of the human eye. So, for example, a 10-watt YAG laser would appear as bright to the human eye as a 30 or 35-watt argon laser. So some of these places installed 30 and 40-watt and some even brighter than that and multiple of these lasers and shot them out into the night sky, and they did it all in compliance with existing regulations. But a number of pilots got flashed as they were coming into land, and there's a perception amongst a lot of people that lasers are sort of like death rays.
Yes.
And that if you touch it, your face will melt like the guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark. But in actual fact, the real danger is that you get momentary flash blindness. In other words, it's very similar to the effect of having your photograph taken at a dimly lit party where you sort of see that after image and you're a little startled, just the flash of light.
The largest holograms ever created was the topic of discussion with Dr. John Perry of Holographics North. Big holograms means big tables, and he told us about his.
If I remember correctly from a story I read about your company, maybe in Holosphere back in the 80s, I would think, you actually work on a floor instead of a table, right? The floor itself is isolated from vibration. Did you pour like a large concrete floor or something?
That's right. We call it a table, but we step right onto it. I mean, it's at floor level. Frankly, our landlord at the time insisted on this. He wouldn't let us pour a concrete slab 3 feet above the floor. It's 12 by 22 feet, and it's 14 inches thick. That's a lot of concrete. And one of the advantages to floor level is, of course, you can just step right on it and walk around. You don't have to climb up and climb down. We have more headroom over it, of course, by doing that also. But another advantage, more practically, is that someday if somebody puts that room to other uses, all they have to do is tile the table, basically, and it's a floor again. The concrete has reinforcement in it. It's not steel. It's fiberglass reinforcement. We basically dug a huge hole in the ground and filled it up with snow, which we have plenty of here, and then poured the concrete on top of the snow, and with a little blue board in between to keep the heat of the curing from melting the snow too fast.
Wow.
And then by the time the snow was melting out, the concrete had set enough to support itself. There are 4 legs that hold the whole thing up. And a fairly complicated structure actually underneath that kind of supports all that concrete. And that all sits on piers that go down through sleeves, 15-inch diameter sleeves. They go down about 14 feet, and then they're anchored directly into the glacial till is really what it is, deep under the building.
Jason Sapan of Holographic Studios in New York City explained to HoloTalk listeners exactly what goes into making computer-generated integral holograms.
Do you have an automated process, or do you work?
The machine itself is automated. However, I would say that, as you know, the concept of automation in holography, it's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
99% of the work is, just manual and physical and almost debilitating at times. When it comes to computer transfer, in my case, I am not using a liquid crystal to project the images off the computer. Rather, I am transferring the files into a GIF viewer, projecting them on my computer monitor screen, transferring them to motion picture film, one frame at a time, and then running the motion picture through the holographic printer I have downstairs in the laboratory here. And that is automated in that, it'll advance one frame of movie film, the holographic film will move an increment, and then the shutter will open, it'll close, it'll wait for a settling time, it'll then advance a frame of movie film, and this is as tedious as can be. We're talking many hours at work only to find out that somewhere you've carted off an edge of the molecule in this particular case, and you have to start over and do it all again.
So there you have it, folks. As you know, HoloTalk has guests every other week, so that was just half of what HoloTalk listeners enjoyed during this past season. I look forward to returning in the fall with great new programs and guests, and hope that you'll all be listening when HoloTalk returns September 13th to a computer near you. It was an honor to be your host for the first year of broadcast. Have a happy and safe summer, and I'll be seeing you in the fall. Take care.